Hey YouTube, I was just looking through some media websites and listening to my friend Erica's AM chit chat, and I'm just getting in from work, so the AM chit chat is my evening show to watch. I'm looking on Pix11, and the title starts out with the medical examiner, is letting out the cause of death, for Lesandro. So I'm like, oh, this should be good. Maybe they'll get in depth as to, all his injuries and, everything. All it said was, cause of death, stab wound to the neck. Alright. Everybody already knew that. That's common sense. That was the cause of death. And it brings me back to what I've said before about not believing the whole surveillance video. When somebody is slashed over and over again with a machete, there would be blood spatter spraying all over the place. Okay? The concrete, the whole front of the store, onto the person who was hitting him. He would have been full of blood. Even the stab wounds to the side by the knives, I saw no blood coming from their hand. There was no blood on their hands, and there was no blood on their clothes. And there was no blood on the floor. When he got up, ran back into the store. The only time you see a splash of blood is when he leans over the counter and asks for help that last time, and they tell him to go to the hospital. Then you see a smear of blood, which is coming from his neck wound. Like I said before, when he runs out of the store and he's asking somebody to call 911, the blood that you see dripping down is from his neck. And then you see little spots on the floor. And then he begins to run. The next scene is him sitting across the street from the hospital, bleeding out. Now, yeah, it looks like blood's coming from everywhere. But it's not. The blood that has poured from his neck, okay? Because the artery pumps 5 liters of blood per, I don't know if it's per minute. I think it's per minute. And that's a lot of blood. So you got to think, if this artery is pumping all this blood, and he's now in a solitary, just sitting there, not moving, the blood would be pumping out to the point where he would be saturated with blood. The blood would be running down his neck, into his chest, onto his legs. Okay? The pictures I've seen of him in the hospital clearly show his neck wound. Okay? Clearly. Now, the sheet is low enough where you're able to see the slashes from the machete if they were there. It's also low enough to see some of the stab wounds that were supposedly given to him. Or done to him, however you want to, I don't even know how to explain that, but it just goes back to me saying that without a full autopsy report from head to toe, okay, marking each and every one of these injuries, I cannot believe that he had all those injuries. From the video footage to the fact that the hospital photos to the medical examiners only talking about the neck wound, it's starting to come together where the rest of the violence was just for the camera, to make it more gory and more violent and more shocking. And like I said, when a person is slashed with a machete, it is gory. It is blood spraying. It is, you would see the blood on the blade itself. If you go back to the initial video, there are no blood spots anywhere on the floor, on the people stabbing him, on him. This would have been a gory, out of Nightmare on Elm Street type of gory, bloody scene, okay? And you could see when he's being hit with the machete, it is not puncturing his skin, which makes me think either this was a fake blade and it was plastic, or the dude was just hitting him with it, like smacking him with it and not cutting him. And then it goes back to, like I said, when they throw him back in the store, there is no blood on that fucking street. There is no blood stain or blood splatter on the concrete in front of that store. Now, we could argue about this until the cows come home, but truth is truth. All you have to do is watch that video. Watch each time that he was supposedly being stabbed and slashed with this machete, okay? And you will not see blood flying anywhere. The very last dude that takes the kitchen knife and slices the side of his neck is the only obvious cut on his body. Excuse me, sorry, that's my dog. That is the only real slash on his body. And that is why that's the only place that you see blood coming out of. The carotid artery is a main artery. So, of course, when he was sitting down and not moving anymore, that blood was pumping out so much of his blood, okay, that he was saturated in blood by that point. Yes, of course. But it wasn't coming from the rest of his body. It was coming out of the neck wound. Now, I can post pictures, okay, that I've got from the first day that this broke in the news. Before people seen these hospital pictures, okay, I have them saved. All you see is that neck wound. There are no slashes on his chest. There are no stab wounds on his chest. There is nothing. The kid's nose is not broken. His jaw is not broken. Okay? So I don't know where all these stories are coming from, But like I said before, without an autopsy report, okay? And I want to read that autopsy report from the first page to the last page. Every fucking detail of this report. I want to know every wound on his body that was inflicted in this assault. Okay? And if I do not see that autopsy report, I have to say, with all of my instincts and my gut, that slash to the neck was the only real wound he obtained in this attack. Okay? Even when they're dragging him out, they are not punching him. They are not kicking him. They simply drag him out of the store, and the machete starts flying, and the other guy starts stabbing him in the side, and then somebody else comes and stabs him, and then they run, and then the last thing you see is the dude slash his throat and throw him back in the store. Okay? He literally slashed his throat and pushed him back into the store. And I've seen this, a lot of people don't want to watch it, but I had to watch it. I had to watch it over and over again because I could only believe what my eyes tell me. Everybody could tell me a million things, but I could only believe what my eyes tell me. And like I said, there was no blood spatter. There was no blood on these people that were stabbing him numerous times. Okay? There was no blood on the floor. If a machete is that sharp, okay, he would have had such deep gashes in his chest, okay? He wouldn't have made it down the block, okay? And we need to come to terms with this because this is the realization of the situation. Why did they want it more violent and more gory? Why? Because it was going to affect the people who were watching this video. Okay? If we would have just seen him get slashed in his throat, enough. If we would have just seen him get slashed in his throat, okay, yes, it would have been horrible to see, but it wouldn't have been as memorable. And they wanted it to be memorable to the point where people were shocked, scarred for life, can't get the image out of their head. They did it for the outcome of what it did. It shocked people. It scared people. It threw people into a frenzy because it was so violent. Okay, which was the point to that was the point to this. Okay? I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm not saying this kid isn't dead. But he was not stabbed the amount of times that you see him being stabbed, okay? This was all for show, okay? This was for our eyes to see this and be like, oh my God, how horrible is this? This kid is being massacred outside. Okay? And that is what has fucked so many people up, is seeing the amount of violence that was presented in those surveillance videos. If we take that away from the surveillance video, okay, and just put a guy grabbing the kid, slicing his throat, and shoving him back into the store, and that's all you see. Then you see him come out, ask for help, run down the block. Then, of course, somebody had to record him sitting there bleeding out, because that was another key piece to making people to be, you know, to fuck people up in their head. This was all set up for people's reactions. And how convenient that he couldn't make it across one more street. You see what I'm saying? He had to collapse across the street from the hospital, because it made it even more sad. It made it even more horrible that you want to go back in time and you want to just grab this kid and run him into the hospital. Yes, that was the point. I got sucked in just like everybody else got sucked in the first time we seen this video. But we have to come to grips with what reality, and we have to come to grips with scientific and medical evidence. They are not releasing that autopsy because it probably doesn't show any other fucking wounds. And that would make everybody know, hey, this fucking situation is fake. You'd flip the fuck out. You'd never watch the news again. Okay? They don't want that to happen. They have to keep up appearances. So they use the neck wounds as the cause of death. Of course that's the cause of death, because that was the only wound that he sustained. I'm sorry, my dog is very into this, apparently. Dubak. Enough. Sorry, guys. It was planned to fuck our head up. And it did. It fucked my head up for days until I said, push this aside, push what you think happened aside, and really look at this situation for what it is. Get rid of your emotions. Do not look at this emotionally, okay? Look at this as you were a forensic analysis, a blood spatter analysis, a detective, and that's what I did. I took my emotions and I put them to the side, and I looked at this as if I was there watching this as from a forensic standpoint. And from a forensic standpoint, I have to tell you again that all those other stabbings that we see taking place and the machete being smashed on him over and over again is fucking Hollywood bullshit. And they didn't even do that good of a job because they didn't have any blood spraying anywhere. And they didn't have any blood on the floor when he got up. There's no blood on the floor when he gets up. So they really didn't do a good job as far as theatrics go. Okay? It could have been done a lot better, and maybe a person like me would have believed it a little bit more. But the production wasn't top notch. So, this is the conclusion that I have come to, and especially now that the medical examiner is basically saying you're not going to see shit about the report. All I'm going to tell you is that the neck wound was the cause of death. Of course it was the cause of death because that was the only wound on this kid's body. And I will keep saying that until there is proof, and I'm talking real proof, not just something somebody types up, okay? But real proof that there was more than one actual puncture mark on that kid's body. And I have to stick to what my gut says. I have to stick to what my eyes are telling me. I have to stick to all of that because that is my truth. We could agree to disagree, but when it comes down to it, like I said, without an autopsy report showing me exactly where these issues were, exactly where these stab wounds were, I cannot tell you, and I will not tell you that it's true, because I only know of one wound, and that was the one that killed him. If we take the pictures that I have of him in the hospital, if you watch that video in slow motion, okay, over and over and over again, which was very painful, but it needed to be done. And I had to put my emotions and my feelings aside to do this. And when I saw what I saw, I was no longer astonished that this poor kid was slaughtered. I was more astonished that they made him look like he was being slaughtered when he was not. So there was no reason why, okay, they had to do what they did. The only reason they did that was to fuck people's heads up, and people's heads are fucked up right now all over the world. And it's sad because y'all are suffering, okay? Yes, there was a loss of life. Yes, I wish it never happened. But it didn't happen the way that they are showing us that it happened, okay? And I want to know, okay, why they felt the need to dramatize this boy's death the way they did. Was it not enough that he was going to be killed, period? That it had to go that far? Because obviously it went that far to affect our minds, okay? To the point where people are losing sleep and not being able to perform at work and not being able to do household chores and not being able to do the shit that they would normally do on an everyday basis because it's fucked you up so bad. But as they say, tell, lie, vision. Okay? A bunch of bullshit, brainwashing crap. And the sooner that we all come to grips with the reality, the sooner that we will no longer suffer from these tragedies. Okay? I want to call it a mirage. Okay? A facade. A fugazi, if you will. Because that is what it is. And I am pissed that I fell for it the first time. But you know what? It was done for us to fall for. So I can't really blame myself for falling for it the first time. But now that my eyes are opened and I am awake and I am fully aware of what occurred and what didn't occur, emotionally, I'm healed. Okay? I am not suffering anymore. Why? Because I know the truth. And the reason why I'm making this video right now is because I want people, as many people as possible, to hear this, okay? And no matter how painful it is to watch that video over and over again, watch it in slow motion over and over again. And tell me what you see every time that machete hits his body. Every time somebody's stabbing him. Look at the floor. Look at the people. Look at their hands. Tell me if you see blood spraying anywhere. Okay? Do it for yourself. Okay? Don't do it for anyone else. Do it for yourself and your own mental sanity. Sit there. Watch it in slow motion. See what I see. See the truth. Because it's not being hidden. It's right there in our fucking faces. And you will be able to sleep again. You will be able to function the way that you always functioned before this happened. And then we will get to why this was done in the first place. And I've brought it up in my other videos. I don't want to bring it up again in this one because I want this one specifically geared toward the fact that we were literally lied to. And we believed this lie. Millions and millions of people around the world. Our lives have been upside down ever since. And that was their purpose. So we fed right up into these evil motherfuckers' purpose of doing that. Okay? And I want everyone to understand that I am not bashing the family. I'm not bashing his mom, his dad. I don't think they had anything. The mother and father had nothing to do with this. I think that they are just as blind as we are, if not blinder, because they're right there involved in the situation. Okay? The only thing that the mother knows that we do not know is the fact that he was not really stabbed and slashed with a machete. Okay? That was for us to see, and that was to affect the community and to affect us. But she can't tell us that. That's part of the deal. She can't tell us that those things that we're seeing weren't true. So she has to keep up with appearances. She has to keep up with the interviews. You know, I don't know how they're threatening her or what they're threatening her with or how they have her so brainwashed at this point. But apparently they do because she's keeping up with this facade. She's not saying every wound that was on his body, but she's also not saying every wound that was on his body. So we have to take into consideration that she has to play along with this, and we're not going to hear it from her unless she grows balls and doesn't care what the outcome, you know, what happens after she tells the truth. Which could be who knows what, you know. The higher-ups could do just about anything they want to anybody, so. We don't know how they're threatening her or his father, to keep that under wraps. And obviously we haven't heard from any of the ER staff or the trauma staff in the hospital. We have not heard from anybody who assisted to bring Lesandro back. That whole trauma team, we haven't heard from them. We'll never hear from them because they seen his body and they know what killed him and what didn't, and what was real and what wasn't real. So there's a lot of different, there are a lot of playing actors in this story. And they almost had me. Okay? They almost had me until I decided to push my emotions and all of that out of the picture and see it as a person that was interrogating this case, okay? And a person who was investigating this case. And that was my analysis. This is my analysis. This is how I see the situation. And like I said, we can argue about it till the cows come home, but the evidence is in the videos, okay? I saved all the first videos that were ever shown because I don't know how much they've changed them by now. I don't know how much they've fixed. I don't know how much they've added or taken away from the footage. So I made sure that I saved all the original footage, and I have all that, and that's what I'm going by. I'm not going by anything that's out now. I'm going by that first video before they had the inside video of the bodega. Also going by the people who were recording it upstairs video. I have that also saved. And that's, that's the conclusion to this video right here. I always look forward to everybody's comments and everybody's thoughts on this. And I hope you guys have a great weekend, a safe weekend, and I will be making more videos, and I hope you guys are enjoying my Manny the Law videos. I'm sorry, it's too funny not to make funnier in the midst of all this sorrow and pain. I figured, we could use a good laugh too. So I hope you guys are enjoying those, and like, subscribe, share with whoever you think might benefit from my videos and my outlook on it. And like I said, if anybody has anything they want to talk about or anything they want me to address, my email is in the box below, and feel free to use it. And like I said, I hope you guys have a great weekend and have a safe weekend.